Hello, listeners. We are your co-hosts, Janine Bailey and Marie Quigley, for the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast. Empower World brings guests who are making a difference to the world to inspire coaches and leaders who lead with mind, heart, and soul. Hello and welcome. My name's Marie Quigley, and today I am with a fascinating man who I'm very lucky to call my friend, my colleague. We've done some wonderful things together, and his name is Andy Robbins. And Andy is the founder of Oyster, the Portland-based leadership development company. He's an executive coach, he's an author, a climber, and a photographer based in Portland, Oregon. And we're in the same time zone, Andy, which has never happened before. And we recently met up as I'm based in Seattle. So welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you, Marie. And yes, you're right. It's so nice to be in the same time zone, and you're just a few miles up the road.
Yeah, and you very kindly came up to Seattle and we did some lovely sightseeing and explorations of the surroundings as well as the city. So thank you for that, Andy.
You're welcome. It was a lot of fun.
Great. It was indeed. And so you can hear in the introduction, Andy, I know that you're many things in the world, and probably you're many more things than that. I know you're a dad, you're a husband, you're a friend, you've got lots going on in your life. We decided that it would be perhaps interesting to come together to talk about something that's really close to your heart at the moment, and that's photography, and maybe linking it to the process of coaching. So I'm going to stop talking, Andy, and hand it over to you and let you kick off. What would you like to say about that?
Yeah, thank you. And to coaches listening, it may be curious or odd that why is there a photographer on Marie's podcast? And in some respects, I could say maybe not a photographer, maybe coaching blended with photography has really become presence designer and presence creator. As a coach, when I'm working with leaders, I mean, what I'm looking to do is to help them show up in the way that they want to be seen, that's going to allow them to fulfill the things that are important to them and the people around them. As a leader, if it's a difficult situation, showing up with calm and poise and confidence. And as a photographer, you can kind of look at that as the role of creating an image, a picture. And I think a lot of photographers are looking for, I want to create a nice image, something that looks nice. But there's such a greater opportunity here to create an image which again really reinforces how a leader comes over and how they want others to see them. I mean, oftentimes, our images are the first thing that people see about us, whether that's on LinkedIn or on a resume, or you're going to a conference. And whether we believe it or not, that creates an image of how we believe that person's going to be. And, what I've realized here is sort of blending my sort of coaching background around creating presence with my headshot photography passion really allows me to sort of get a little bit more intentional and perhaps granular here in terms of, what sort of people am I working with and how do they want to show up? What's important to them? How would they want others to see them? It might be an executive who is in transition. Maybe they've been let go from a senior role and they're looking to show up, and they're looking to show up with gravitas, calm, authority. Maybe there's a technical expert. They don't necessarily need to show up with gravitas. They may want to show up with technical excellence, precision, reliability. If you're a speaker, both of those descriptions that I've showed are maybe not so relevant. Maybe it's more about charm and curiosity and, hmm, who is this person and how are they going to show up in the next half an hour with me? So it's been fascinating, I've got to say. And one of the really interesting thing here is when I work with a new client and I ask them how do they want to show up, oftentimes at first I get kind of a like a little quizzical look and they're like, well, I'm not sure. What do you mean? And then once we get talking about it, it's like, oh yeah, yeah, I'd like to be like this and like that. And then when people see their images at the end, something really profound happens. And this was a real surprise to me. They walk out maybe an inch or two taller. And what I mean by that is they walk out with a new sense of confidence. They walk out with a new sort of sense of this is who I am. This is the presence that I'm bringing. And, I've worked with a lot of people who are in between jobs. They've walked in, they've been looking for a job or interviewing for 6 to 12 months. They're a little bit down. They're walking out of there with a different sense of energy and possibility of, alrighty, I can now go show up, be my best self, and I can go get something. So that has been really, really rewarding and really beautifully surprising.
Yeah, it sounds like a profound experience, not just for the person who's having the headshot taken, but also the deeper connection that you're able to make with people to support them to kind of unlock their presence. Because it is an interesting question, how do you want to be, or who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in this world? I've been writing a lot about presence recently, Andy, and I'm struck by the process of creating a presence, someone's presence in an image. So often we can feel it in ourselves, can't we? We can feel when we're fully present. Our body is responding. But how do you capture that in a single moment that's going to show through eyes, through face, through energy, that moment? How do you capture that? What's your process of supporting people to determine their presence?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting if I go back just a little bit here, as you were alluding to, we know it when we see it, but we can't describe it.
Mm.
And, if you look at a lot of people's headshots, you have a pretty good idea when it's a fake smile versus an expression which is genuine.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as I've been going deeper and deeper on the sort of the photography, posing, expression side of this work. There has been a lot of research which talks about the characteristics of a smile. There's something called the Duchenne sort of reaction, which there's certain muscles in our face that we tense up when we get a smile. And our head tends to go backwards and we get sort of little creases in our cheeks that I can see in your face, Marie. And things happen around the eyes. And it's the thing that has been amazing for me with coaching. One of the things is, recognizing that unconscious side of us that is deep and it's there and it sees these things, but we aren't aware. We already know what a genuine expression looks like. One of the things that I came across as a coach, which was fascinating to me, is um, the seeing the mind in the eye test. And I don't know if you've heard of this. There's a test where you see lots and lots of people's just their eyes, and they are representing different emotions. And it's a really great little test that you can do. And I was amazed. I was like, oh yeah, that's that's anxiety. Oh, that's joy. That's curiosity. And all you're seeing is their eyes.
Yeah. Wow.
So once you start to sort of understand this, then you'd go, well, why on earth would I want a headshot out there that I'm just trusting the luck and I don't want to be intentional about it? It's like, what do I want it to portray? Well, whatever anybody thinks. And it's such an opportunity that we lose. So to your question, I guess I should answer your question here. How do I do it? Um, I've created 5 profiles for now. That may change, but each of these profiles I've really thought about, well, what is it that we look for in a particular role or a person in that role, and then really then translating that into what would the image what should the image display. So for example, if I look at technical expert and I look at my profile, you won't be surprised if I call out, let's say, image signals. Should be intelligence, should be precision, competence, reliability, composure, approachability. And what we're looking for here, we're not looking for a nice wide smile, ha ha ha, this is lovely, I'm a lovely person to be around, I'm fun. We're looking for composure, reliability, competence. So it's a controlled expression, not overtly showing one emotion or another, not stern, but just composed, confident. I am comfortable who I am. It needs to have direct eye contact. It's amazing that, when we see someone's eyes on a photograph and they're looking right at you, that signals so much, because in real life, when someone's in front of us, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I'm not thinking, wow, I'm going to look right in their eyes. But that's exactly what a great image does. And for someone like a technical expert who's all about precision and knowledge and sort of being right, no flinching on the eyes. Give me those eyes right at me. And also, give me those eyes maybe with just a little squinch in them, just so that it sort of gives that air of authority. And this, what I'm describing here is really the coaching process when someone is in front of me of, we're starting off and we're sort of getting warmed up and we're taking some images. But then we start to narrow in and we start to really focus on, okay, give me that tiny, tiny smile. Too much, too much, and let me look at those eyes and let's, just give me a tiny little squinch and we'll work from there. And then we'll work on sort of angles and posture and, how the head needs to be. And it's remarkable when we sort of take a little break, because I take several breaks through the process and I shoot straight into my laptop. And I'm like, come on over, come on, let's have a look at these pictures. And then the people are amazed at the micro differences which portray very, very different sort of perceptions and expressions. And we're talking micro, absolute micro differences, a head up or a head down or a slight tilt, whatever. That mouth, whether it's, is it a little bit too smiley? Is it about right? And that's really what we're aiming for. And I recognize that folks just can't get in front of me and go, okay, I'm gonna be just like that. So it's a little bit of a moving target, and we'll move through the zone and we'll move out. And it's a bit like coaching. I trust the process that at the right moments, the expressions I'm looking for will come out. and I'll be there capturing them.
Love that, Andy. And I am noticing that, masterful coaching is noticing those tiny moments of shifts
Mm,
as well.
yeah,
And how if we are paying attention, there's so much can be uncovered, unfolded from noticing a movement or a nod or a change of skin color or something. The body's speaking constantly, isn't it?
it is. It absolutely is. And tiny, tiny adjustments have dramatic uh, sort of impacts on
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. And so then I'm thinking, I've recently had some headshots done, as you know, Andy, and the process of standing to have your photograph taken is a bit daunting because somebody's
It,
looking fully at you and trying to capture you. And I noticed how initially I felt a little bit uncomfortable having the spotlight on me because it's usually the other way round in my work. I'm giving full attention to somebody else. So what are the ways that you get people to kind of, I suppose, come into their body so that they're able to express themselves in the way that when they see themselves in the photo, because I have said, "Oh, that's me." But, the wildly laughing one, that was snapped because of a joke isn't actually how I feel inside. That was probably more nerves than anything. But there was a picture that I thought, "Oh, yeah, that's who I am." So how do you get somebody to that stage where they're able to be in a place to recognize that?
yeah, yeah, it's fascinating. Some people walk in, and from the moment the shutter opens and closes, they are on, and it is remarkable. And they're not professionals that are not like I'm shooting actors or whatever, and they know how to do this, or models.
Yeah.
But they just seem to have some people have just this natural ability of just being themselves, which I'm
Mm,
probably, I guess, is in real life. Some people show
yeah,
up with just confidence and that things just bounce off them and that they just go through life like that. Lucky them.
yeah.
Uh, I have other people who show up who are terrified, and I can tell they're doing their best. But I had a wonderful lady who showed up who I think really froze. And, I was giving her directions and she just didn't move, didn't respond, was there very statuesque. And that kind of like a coach then. It gives me a choice of, okay, so what could I try? And I could be very reassuring. I might also be totally disruptive,
Mm,
but and maybe completely um, you know, just coming at it from a completely unexpected direction. I'm being mentored by an incredible photographer called Peter Hurley in New York. And I had the privilege to be in his studio in a workshop a few weeks ago. And he has people come in, and, he is probably, I don't know, about 10 blocks from the Empire State Building. And, one of his things to disarm people, is this really what we're doing? He says, okay, all right, Marie, all right, turn your head towards the Empire State Building. And then he goes, no, I said the Empire State Building. Which direction are you going in? Which way is it? And all of a sudden, he's starting to break the ice a little bit there, you know, and you have to pay attention to how somebody responds. It might be that they respond very stone faced and stern, like, what the hell's going on? And okay, your next move. And it's about what do you have to do to create that trust and that sense of security. Very, very similar to a
yeah.
coach. I also find when people just walk in the door, I get a sense. It's like when you first come on to a meeting or you meet somebody, you're just feeling your way. And what I'm learning now, one of the things I have to get better at is more expand my toolkit. Like as a coach, I've got a toolkit of my regular go-to questions that I feel very comfortable with. And if that one doesn't work, yeah, it's okay. I've got 3 or 4 others. And I think it's building my repertoire now and behind the camera of which things do I feel really comfortable about pursuing because I have to show up believing it that are going to create the sort of reaction that I'm looking for. So in that respect, it's very, very similar to coaching.
Yeah, I hear that, and I love that disruptive pattern that you mentioned that Peter Hurley creates to support a shift in somebody, because that's what we do as coaches, isn't it, as well? We are challenging, we are being provocative with permission to support some new awareness or some new information to come out rather than stay in our little comfort zone. So I'm loving that link, and having experienced it recently myself in the shoot, yeah, that it just breaks down a few barriers, and for me, the fun, the provocation, the challenge allowed me to just settle into myself a little bit more. So yeah, I appreciate you noticing that, and how some people may not respond well to it, and how you've got to perhaps recover that. And as coaches, we're constantly recalibrating our relationship and our partnership to think, how can I get the best out of somebody, to
Yes.
support them to see their own greatness, to see their own beauty even within.
Yeah. It reminds me of a story that Peter Hurdy shared at the workshop I was at. He uh, had a session the day before with a very senior female leader. She was Asian. She was all business. She was like, I don't have time for this. I've been told to be here. My boss says I need to be here, so let's get it over with. And it never lightened up. And she hated her images. She wanted to look 20 years younger, but also not people to say it's fake. And you know what Peter did, I thought was actually uh it was a very, very mature sort of composed move where Peter's like, I am one of the best headshot photographers in the world. I'm doing my best here with you, and I think these images have a lot more to offer than you do. And I'm going to ask you just to trust the process. And him being willing to stand his ground, to be grounded, to challenge her to where she was, because she's a pretty senior lady, senior leader who's probably not used to people like standing up. And that was a spark in that session which changed the dynamic. Now they were equals.
Mm.
It wasn't, I'm coming here, I haven't got time for this. This is an annoyance. You're just a photographer. Get it over with because I've got stuff to do. Then it was a partnership.
Yeah.
And, I saw the images that Peter took, and it's like, wow. She
Isn't that
still wasn't
amazing?
happy, but hey, you can't please
Yeah.
everybody.
And I'm thinking again of that lovely link. I always say to coaches that I'm training, you are equal in this partnership. Of course, the client's world is their world, and they are the most important thing. But you are trained as a coach. You are an expert as a coach
Yep.
in who you are. And so when you come not apologizing for your craft, for your work, then it gets much more respect, and you can meet people where they are with the same energy, with the same if they are confrontational, with the same confrontation. That
Yeah.
helps often to, as you've quite beautifully described, just help somebody to say, okay, you are equal to me, and that helps build trust and connection again.
Beautifully said. Exactly right. Peter's not going to give her any business advice,
No,
and she's not coming in to get business advice. But what
yeah.
he can say is, this is you do what you do. This is what I do.
Yeah, love that. And I think that is relevant to any coach at any stage. I always say you
Yeah.
are one step ahead of your clients because you've learned all these magnificent processes, and the more you can step into your own presence, the better your coaching's going to be, and the more connection you're going to have with your client, the person you're working with, and you're describing that in that partnership that Peter created with his partner, with his
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it creates a beautiful image. It
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
also thinking about, perhaps we all would like to look 20 years younger. I remember having a headshot done, must have been actually about 20 years ago, and I was younger then. And the photographer wiped my face. He edited it so much. Hopefully, it wasn't because my image was so bad, but he edited it so much that I didn't see myself in the picture. It was a beautiful picture, but it
Yeah.
wasn't me. He'd missed out my lines, my dimples, my movements, my uneven lips,
Yeah.
and I just didn't recognize myself in the picture. And
Yeah.
I
And
I think we've got to recognize ourselves. That's what you're talking about in this work. We have to see ourselves to feel like, "Yeah, that's the one. You've caught me. You've got me."
yeah. And you're touching on something that I think is also relevant in a different way right now, and that is, you know, generative AI, artificial intelligence. And I know in the coaching world, there's a lot of anxiety, concern about what's the future hold? Am I going to have a job? Same in the photography world. I'm a member of Peter's community, and there's a lot of dialogue about AI.
Okay.
And for what you're describing there is, yeah, I can spend in the US $35. I did a little test. I sent in 6 terrible passport photographs. And I said, great. All right, give me your headshot. Give me your best one. Amazing.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, they look pretty good. But you know what? They were all generic. They were all over processed. They had that same kind of background. You know, they were all wearing the same kind of suit or whatever. And it's like they weren't me. They were okay, but they really missed the human aspect. And I think the same is true with coaching.
Mm.
Yeah, we can have some generic tool which is helpful, but is it able to pick up those micro differences in expression, which, give us that something you taught me, Marie. Pay attention and look for those little moments where you can say, hmm, I noticed something there. What's going on for you? And it opens up a whole nother world that otherwise you'd miss because you're on to the next thing. I better be doing this and that.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating that there's just so many similarities here across the two uh, um, crafts.
Yeah. And how beautifully you've described it as a craft, but because it is. It's a practice, and the more we do both, I'm not a photographer, but I'm guessing that similarity with developing a craft, the more you do it, the more you do it with a sense of deep connection to the other human being, and more of wanting to understand with a deep curiosity, then the models are useful, right? You need to know your craft from the perspective of theory and models. That's always useful, but actually it's in the relational capacity that you get the most out of another human being, that you get the best out of another human being.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It is being able to notice just those tiny little things that, as I say, just open up different possibilities that really, you know, as a photographer, what I'm learning is to see with a different pair of glasses. I'm learning different distinctions, things that when my first images that I did, I go, oh, that's great. And now I look at it and I go, yeah, but there's this and there's this and there's this. And it's the same thing with becoming a coach. And you start to notice. And I think you're so right that that's a skill that we develop and is so important.
Yeah. I've seen some of your work, Andy, and it is beautiful and inspiring. And I love the fact that how you describe when somebody's out of work and they have this headshot with you and they walk. I'm sitting up because they walk that 2 inches taller. I mean, gosh, that makes a difference in somebody's life. So we're coming to the end of our conversation, but what would you like our listeners, our coaches, our leaders to think about if they're thinking about wanting to maybe get an even image for themselves to that represents them and the work that they do? Because that's what I've been thinking about recently. What what advice do you have for them?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that comes to mind is as we're working with a client, we're working with the whole person. And take a look at their headshot. Go on to LinkedIn or whatever site it is, or if they've given you one. What does that tell you? Is it 20 years out of date? In which case, yeah, I don't really care about how people see me. Is it, not representative? It's really polished up. What does that say about them? Is there a lack of confidence, perhaps? Um, there's a wealth visually that we can pick up. So I really encourage folks to, extend their craft into that area to really sort of think about that and not from oh, I want to really promote photography. That's not where I'm coming from. It's recognizing the world that we're in and how so much of it is online, how we show up online. How are they showing up on video?
Yeah.
I have a partner who is an incredible communications expert, and he has a different lens to me, and he's always looking at their background and what's in there and how does it show up and what does it say about them. So I would really encourage coaches to, in addition to the sort of analogies that we've shared about coaching practice, but be willing to extend themselves and, perhaps take a look at some photography books or images and what do you see?
Yeah.
Who is that person? What questions come up for you? What makes you curious about how they are? Because we're basically then going to the gym and exercising new muscles, which there'll be a time when you have someone in front of you and you notice something and that opens the door that has never been opened before.
Beautiful. I mean, and even listeners, pause our video if you're watching this on video and look at Andy and myself and notice what do you see in these two human beings that are having a conversation together. That could be a lovely activity. And the way my mind works, Andy, is that as you're talking, I'm also thinking how interesting it would be for our clients to bring in different headshots at different
Yeah.
periods of their life and explore them and see what they mean to
Mm.
them and get
Yeah.
curious with them about what this new headshot is offering them now. There's so much creativity we can do in this beautiful work of coaching.
That's brilliant because what is important at each stage of our life can certainly show up in a picture that we value.
Yeah, yeah.
What a wonderful way of, really expanding the relationship and going deeper and doing so in a way which is fun.
Exactly, yeah, and also that when we get creative in our work, the research shows us that it takes the playful aspect of it, takes the seriousness of whatever's happening away so we can think in a different way, so we can bring images,
Yeah,
if we can connect to ourselves, if we can laugh at ourselves, if we can get curious in a different way about those images, it can provide some profound insights.
it can. And and there's one other thing that just comes to mind here, Marie, that you're role modeling here. A lot of people would say, "Why on earth did you suggest to me to come on your podcast as a photographer? What has that got to do with coaching?" And hats off to you because when I was a corporate leader, I didn't have time to meet with anybody that really wasn't on my agenda, and it was really clear why I was meeting with them. And then when I became a coach and started my leadership company, I had to expand my network. And I might meet with you. I have no idea who you are, why we're meeting, other than it's nice to get to know you. And something amazing always came out of those conversations. And you're just showing it here with like, wow, that's a great idea. Like, yeah, we could have those images from different parts of our life, and that would open up some amazing insights. So to me, it's like I encourage listeners to get out of the box, to go connect with things which have absolutely no rational relationship, because I bet there will be.
Yeah.
And something will come up.
I wanna high five you there, Andy. I absolutely agree with you. I think we should be looking outside of the world of coaching and its models to support us to deepen our craft. Poetry, dance, outdoors, photography, painting,
Yeah.
singing, laughter, whatever it is
Yeah.
that really inspires you, go experience that. And in some ways, allow it to come into your work. It creates just magical thinking.
It does. It does. Exactly. So kudos. And since we started talking today, it's like, wow, I've really sort of taken away so many more connections that I really wasn't aware of.
Oh, that's fantastic. And me too. This is what the beautiful process of generative thinking happens when two people who have no idea where the conversation is going to go use themselves to support the development of the conversation. So, Andy, thank you for giving your time. I know you're incredibly busy, and I know many people would be interested in the work you do in leadership, but also in the work you do as a photographer. So, how can people find you?
Yeah, I'm an unusual photographer in the fact I have a fairly active LinkedIn account.
Yeah,
And I do talk about my work from the leadership, maybe coaching perspective on LinkedIn. So I have a few posts there about it. There's my photography website, which yeah, everybody has, and I'm sure you'll be able to get that link from the show notes. And the big thing for me that I'm not comfortable with right now, I'll be honest, is building a LinkedIn and Instagram presence. My story here is, whoa, there's all these photographers who've been doing this for years and years, and who am I? So please go out and follow me on Instagram and, give me a helping hand along. I'm posting stuff, and, yeah, it's my way of showing up, and it's perhaps a little different than what other people do with the angle I'm bringing, but, yeah, it's fun. I'm stepping into a new world.
fantastic, Andy. First of all, before I get curious about that, how do people find out about what's it called, the Instagram account?
It's Andy RPDX is
Okay,
my handle, and you can pop that
I
in the
will
show
do.
notes. But Andy and an R for Robbins, and then PDX for Portland. And if you look me up, you'll find me. And it's not your traditional photography account,
Lovely.
but it's growing.
Lovely. And I just wanted to highlight that this is how a lot of new coaches feel. when they come into the world of coaching and think, oh my God, there's so many coaches that have come before me. Is there room for me? Is there space?
Mm,
So I appreciate your vulnerability in this new space that you're in, Andy. And I just think we've got to step into that space and
bingo.
do it in our unique way, because if we're not in the space, how on earth can people find us when they need us? So thank you
So
for
true.
modeling that vulnerability.
Yeah. And it's like when I started writing a blog, I just put it out there and it's like, okay, I like it. If nobody else does, that's okay. It's not for them.
Yeah, yeah. Great,
And
great.
you get surprised that many more people like it than you think.
You do indeed. So, thank you so much. I feel like we've captured an image for me for the rest of a beautiful day, because this conversation has been really inspiring, as always, with you, Andy, and empowering. So, thank you for giving your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I wish you all the best as you develop your Instagram and your maybe TikToks and your
Oh, that's
whatever it
another
is.
one. Ooh, ooh. That's even scarier.
Yeah. Um, And I'm sure that it will have been an interesting conversation for so many of our listeners. Any words you want to say before we close off, Andy?
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess just thank you again for being willing to step outside of the box, inviting this conversation. And yeah, I really appreciate it. And I hope people listening take that on board and take it on their journey and step outside their box and see what's out there.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andy. And thank you, listeners. We always appreciate you listening in, sharing the podcasts if you like them, commenting on the podcast of what you appreciate, maybe what you don't like, or what you want more of, or what you want less of. Feedback is always useful for us. Please share with some people that you might think find this interesting. And of course, keep listening. And most importantly, keep coaching and being creative in your coaching. See you next time. Thanks for listening. You can find out more about us on our website www.empower-world.com and on our social media networks Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube. Be empowered.